Charles Darwin, Ronald Reagan, Harry Truman, Frida Kahlo, and probably most famously, and tragically of all, Anne Frank. These are all people we talk about today, we know about today, but peculiarly know a surprisingly large personal amount about. Why? Not because they published some sort of book or website or something like this, but because they kept diaries. Every night they'd go home, they'd look and they'd write in a small, probably leather-bound book, and they'd put pen to paper. They'd write something. Each day was different, each day was unique, not every day was the same length, not every day was the same content, not every day had the same beginning or end. Some days they'd simply write a report on the weather, other days they'd write a report on what they had for dinner, and some days they'd write a full-on, long-winded 5-page insert as to their political musings, about one topic or another. So why is this journaling valuable? Why did these figures see such value in it? And how can we get involved? Those are the questions we need to answer and the questions I hope to answer for you all today. Journaling is not, as is most often assumed, about a prolonged vision to keep a log of your entire life that you can look back on. It's not about saying, I'm planning out the next 10 years of my life, I'm writing it down, and I'm going to jot down the points and execute. Now, that is what some people do with their journals, but it is not what journaling in and of itself is about. Research has shown that journaling, the act of writing down your thoughts purely from the last 24 hours and nothing more, is what is valuable. Anywhere between 5 and 30 minutes of writing can achieve this. I keep a journal myself, and on some days I have big feelings about something and I decide I'm going to write 10 pages, I'm going to write it really neatly, I'm going to write it really well, and I'm going to put pen to paper properly. And that's what I do some days. But on other days, I look at my book, I look at my little orange book, and I really don't want to write in that book. I want to go to bed, I want to lie down, and I want to get out of that space. But I look at that book and I go, I will write something. Now, usually on those days where I don't want to write in it, I end up writing barely 2 lines. I say, much the same as yesterday, will write more tomorrow. But what exactly does this look like? I'd like to start with myself and the value and my own journey in keeping a diary. I've kept a journal for about 8 years, and it wasn't a conscious decision. It was more driven by the actual journal, the book, than by any idea to write something down. I remember I was about 9 or 10 and I was in Europe, and back then I was quite a suave young man. I had a bow tie and a little fedora, and I had had bright orange chinos. And I thought I was really quite fashionable. I was quite taken with this sort of European world. And so we were in some town, I think it was in France, and there was this nice store. And I walked into it because I wanted to take something nice home. I didn't really know particularly too much about anything, but I saw myself as needing some accessory, some fashion, something like this. And so I walk into this store, and of course anything of consequence was far and away beyond any reasonable price. I initially started by looking at the jackets and the watches, which of course weren't an option. And then I got down to the pens, which I think were about $900 for a pen. Absolutely ridiculous. And so I go down and down the price range in this store until I land on this orange leather book. And I think it was about $85, which for a book and anything that small is frankly ridiculous. But I was determined. I was determined to buy something, and I ended up buying this book. And being the young idealistic person that I was, I'd feel exceedingly bad if I didn't do something with it. And so I took my book and I began writing in it. At that point in time, we were on about a 6-week holiday through Europe. So every night I'd write down what I saw, what I liked, the food I ate, the journey we were on. Occasionally I'd draw little sketches in this book, and I'd have a look at them too. And so I'd sit there and I'd write my entries, and as I was writing, I began to look back on my previous entries. So much so that at the end, when we were about to get on that plane and get out of there, I decided to have a look back at my holiday. And so I flicked through the pages of my 6 weeks, my 42 diary entries, and I had a look at the journey I had been on. And as sad as I was to get on that plane and get out of there were 2 reasons I was incredibly happy at that moment. The first was I could say to myself, I have done something here. In a time where otherwise you were going with the flow, you're relaxing, I'd written down something every single day. And I knew on every one of those days that I'd written something down, I had done something productive. And the second point was that 6 weeks later, I could look back and I could form the journey that I'd been on. I'd built this sort of story throughout that would endure beyond the holiday. And that to me is the true value of journaling. that, as Ronald Reagan said, we will always remember, we will always be proud. So now on to the research that backs this up. Whilst a very small piece of the immense research apparatus that surrounds mental well-being, investigations into the value of journaling, particularly gratefulness journaling, are unique and highly valuable in that they represent the science behind one of the few easily quantifiable, yet, and I think this is critical, totally independent mental health strategies that exist. The Harvard Business Review wrote an intriguing article in early 2021. Whilst not explicitly referencing journaling, it discusses the value of healthy habits and, quote, what it really takes to build a new habit. It challenges the just do it for 21 days concept, replacing it with 4 key ideas. The most notable to our talk today being that of managing emotions, not just actions. In the context of journaling, it is this key point that is proven, as the nature of witnessing your own emotions in writing means you have to manage and reflect on them. There's an intrinsic desire within us not to want to reflect, but we are forced to if we write. Meaning that the more we write, the more we manage our emotions, and the more beneficial and enduring our habit of writing becomes. It is this cycle of positive feedback that lies at the heart of all good habits, and journaling is quite unique and quite valuable in that it is self-fulfilling. A study published by the American Psychological Association reports that expressive writing about your thoughts or feelings for about 20 to 40 minutes every day, or less actually, has been shown to improve mental and physical health outcomes. Additionally, an article from the Harvard Health Publishing noted that when people openly write about stressful or traumatic experiences, they are significantly more likely to reach out for the support networks that exist. And they are also significantly more likely to report improved emotional regulation. So that's what I'm talking about when I say 5 minutes every day, not necessarily writing your life plan, not necessarily recounting some epic event, but just writing something. Because even these short bursts have been shown to build psychological resilience we need and build the emotional clarity we crave. This 10.4% improvement may not sound like a lot, but over time it is these small gains that translate into successful habits and ultimately a successful life. Journaling alone won't do this, but it is a piece in the puzzle. So writing doesn't just make you feel better, it also improves your memory of what actually happened. An article published by the Harvard Business Review titled 4 Reasons to Keep a Work Diary highlights how memory is fallible. A diary, in contrast, provides a concrete, time-stamped record of decisions, conversations, and project milestones, crafting a path as to how final goals were and can be achieved. This aligns closely with how historical diaries have become primary sources for understanding not just what happened in history, but how it felt to those involved. There's a reason we know something about Ronald Reagan's minor internal crisis after watching the apocalyptic film The Day After in October 1983. And there is a reason we know about Anne Frank's daily life under constant threat of a regime bent on her total elimination. These are things that cannot be captured in newspaper articles, nor recounted with the same sort of authenticity years after. A journal provides that snapshot in time. In a world in which mental health is one of the most pressing concerns we face, under threat from social media, from constant distraction, and from constant outside pressures, this sort of touch point, this small, simple act can lead to the big impact we all crave. Pick up a journal today, orange, green, whatever you like, and just start writing. Thank you, and that is why I'm so proud to give this speech today. Good night.